Alright, now let's take a look at some of the setting solutions and see which one is king. If it has the A and B before after kind of thing, like microset, microsol kind of thing, then I'll use it specifically that way. But some of these I just have just a solution like Solvaset, and I'll just apply it as is and go from there. So I've got Tamiya decals, Eduard, Cartograph. Can't go and test every manufacturer, every sheet, obviously. That's where it's just not going to work. Don't have that amount of time, sorry. So when we look at this, there's a few things that I did with it. I also wanted to see if there's a difference between if you apply before and then put it on, or if you only put it on top. And so that's why you can see two of each. And yeah, there's a little bit of a difference. One thing I've kind of burnt through, this Dispay stuff is actually pretty dang strong. I'm kind of digging it. So with Tamiya, they work quite well, and it didn't matter if you're putting on bottom and on top or just on the top. Worked pretty well. This Eduard, for the most part, worked well with both of them. I'm not sure. We can think of this as probably an anomaly with those bubbles. So worked quite well. So this is the Dispay. So there's two different sets with it. So we used this guy with it, but for the sets that are the before and after, that's where we use the decal softener adhesive with it. And yeah, I think didn't really need anything like that because they're already quality decals. But if we kind of use some old crappy decals, then that might be a game changer or just a poor manufacturer. But just using the regular process either way with Tamiya worked well. Cartograph worked well. So a little bit we'd have to fix here, but that's just another application. Those go away. Because remember, I'm just doing one application. See how much power it has in one application. Okay, next up, we get into the Mr. Hobby lines. So I've got with the Mark setter first, and then softener on top, or just softener. And getting into these Tamiyas, you know, probably would work fine if we do additional layers, but kind of, I don't know. Not too bad, not too great with them. Moving into these Eduards, pretty good. A few little bubbles that we'd have to kind of pop and get to. So not bad. I've used those in the past there. Cartograph, this is from kind of wing nut kit. And I think this is just pooling around it. We just kind of have to wash out a bit and get to there. But otherwise, it applied quite nicely. And then this is a different Cartograph, and it worked quite well, except for a little bit of melting of the insignia in there, so not ideal. So Mr. Hobby worked pretty well. Now the old go-to that everybody says, oh, yep, you got to use the microset and microsol, the old 2-bottle double whammy combination. So let's see how that guy wraps up with here. With Tamiya, not too bad. I guess probably not quite as painted on and adhered. We're not getting into seeing kind of like the rivet detail that I was trying to add. So not the best. Remember, so I did the blue and then the red and then just the red. With that decal, kind of similar. And then with Eduard decals, not bad, but definitely bubbly. Got to poke some bubbles. Probably would work. And then Cartograph was interesting. So that one, not a problem at all. This one, I don't know what happened there. Obviously, failure. So, not bad. But I think there's definitely better solvents and solutions out there. Okay? When we get into good old Solvaset, a big jar. This is known to be like acid for some people, just like, oh man, that'll melt anything. Well, it did pretty good with it. You can definitely see some rivet detail and all that. Here you get into some bubbling, so you get into that. It's going to need to be additional follow-ups with that. And using Solvaset probably worked pretty well. Okay, and then the one that I was using for most of the whole video is getting into the Mark Fit Strong. So with this, pretty awesome. Get into maybe a little bit where it didn't go into that recess, but keep in mind the panel line I probably could have done better. All I did was just take the back end of a blade and just run it along. So it kind of has some ridges, but in the end, maybe that's more of a challenge and worthwhile. So, but quite well on all the Tamiya and Eduard and Cartograph options. So I like that one. Gonna continue to use it. Next up is getting into the VMS. So this is the decal set and soften, 2-in-1. And so applying below and above, and it worked pretty well, except for this one. I don't know, maybe this isn't Cartograph and it's actually somewhere else, but whatever, it didn't work well with that, but it worked pretty well with all the others. So yeah, you need to clean up some of the excess solution on there. Because part of it too is to just kind of see, well, what happens if I'm just messy, right? What kind of extra stuff is going to just be floating around? And so that was part of my test, don't worry. Okay, now this one, some of you are going to be like, oh, okay, whoa, no, you got to be kidding me. Well, this is just, why not? It's not on an actual project or anything. Mr. Cover leveling thinner, some of your unicorn tears, and pretty amazing actually. Not bad. Some of this probably additional on top to get them to kind of go away, but yeah, just put it on with water and then applied the leveling thinner with a brush on top, and it worked quite well. Granted, some of these, you can see the silvering came back a bit and there. So I imagine another coat and you're gonna be done. Okay. Alrighty, boys and girls, what did we learn? Just like anything, it depends. You're gonna run into some decals that you know, will only work with Solvaset. It's the only ones they like. You're gonna get into some decals where just on the same sheet, some work really great with the one that you're using. Some just have a different behavior for some reason. It's just that one decal out of the whole sheet that wants to behave different. I don't know. Now, is there superior ones? I mean, I'm gonna use more of the Dispay. I think the Dispay, I was very surprised. I wasn't expecting a whole lot because their products are usually not bad, but not top of the line kind of thing, but performed quite well, especially with the decal adhesive. So that was quite good. But does that mean everybody needs to go out and rush and buy those? No. You could probably get by with a lot of them. But the VMS, that worked out well, but when you get into some of the other stuff, there's going to need a little bit of a touch-up that needs to happen afterwards, and so it isn't across the board going to work with every decal, so I don't think there's going to be that. The other thing, of course, is all of this was just one application, right? Generally, to have things work right, multiple applications. And one of the theories, too, is to have something that's not super strong, but just slowly building up that melting of the decal film, and with application until it's perfect. Because the other thing that you can have is you could go too strong first, and yeah, then you got nearly a ruined decal. So that's not always good. So there's some different philosophies with that. And we can talk a little bit more about that with the next video, where we're going to fix decals when you start to notice the silvering, or silvering came up after a week, whatever. What are my tips for that? And we'll try to create a little bit of a scale, but there's really not a good way that I can think of. You can put something in the chat of where I can kind of figure out what is going to be like the weakest to strongest. I think a lot of it's anecdotal, so I'm trying to figure out how I can do that scientifically, but I don't know. So if you got any ideas, put that in the chat, but we'll have that on the next video. So hopefully you learned something, and make sure that you like the video so others can find it, and subscribe so you can be here for the next video. See you then.